I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who gets disinvited from her own daughter's wedding. But here I am, sitting in my kitchen at 62, staring at an email that just shattered 28 years of unconditional love into 1,000 pieces. My name is Margaret Williams, and I've been a mother longer than I've been anything else. When my husband Robert passed away 8 years ago from a sudden heart attack, I thought that was the worst pain I'd ever experience. I was wrong. The worst pain comes from the child you sacrificed everything for looking you in the eye and telling you you're not family enough to matter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a retired school teacher from Ohio ended up paying $50,000 for a wedding she wasn't allowed to attend. My mornings start the same way they have for the past 8 years. Coffee at 6, water the rose garden Robert planted for me when Jessica was born, then settle into my reading chair with whatever book my book club picked for the month. It's a quiet life, but it's mine. The house feels too big sometimes, 4 bedrooms for one person, but every room holds memories of raising Jessica, and I can't bear to leave them behind. I live comfortably on my teacher's pension and Robert's life insurance. Not wealthy by any means, but secure enough to help when needed. And with Jessica, there was always a need. College tuition at Northwestern, $120,000. Her first apartment in San Francisco when she couldn't find a job that paid enough. $30,000 in help over 2 years. The down payment on her condo when she finally got established. $50,000 more. I never kept count until recently. Now I wish I hadn't started. Jessica has always been driven, the kind of child who knew what she wanted and went after it with laser focus. Valedictorian in high school, marketing degree with honors, landed a job at a prestigious firm in San Francisco before graduation. I was so proud I could barely contain myself. My daughter, the success story, the one who broke the cycle of small-town limitations I'd grown up with. She met David Chen 2 years ago at some tech networking event. He's brilliant. She'd gush during our weekly video calls, works for a startup that's about to go public. His family has money, real money, from tech investments in Taiwan. I was happy she found someone ambitious like her, someone who could match her drive and maybe ease some of the financial pressure she'd been under since college. Our weekly calls were the highlight of my week. She'd tell me about work drama, new restaurants she'd tried, weekend trips to Napa or Lake Tahoe. I'd share updates about my volunteer work at the library, which neighbors had new grandchildren, what I was reading. Simple conversations, but they were our connection across 2,000 miles. Looking back now, I can see when things started to change. The calls got shorter, more businesslike. Instead of, "How was your week, Mom?" it became, "Hey, just checking in. Everything good?" The warmth started draining out little by little, so gradually I convinced myself I was imagining it. Then came the comments about independence. "I'm really focusing on standing on my own feet," she'd say. "David and I believe in financial independence from family." At first I thought it was healthy, a young couple wanting to build their own life without relying on parents. I encouraged it, even though something in her tone felt like criticism of all the help I'd given over the years. There were other signs I chose to ignore. When I'd ask about David, her answers became vague. "He's fine, Mom, just busy with work." When I suggested visiting San Francisco, there was always a reason why it wasn't a good time. Work was crazy. They were traveling. The condo was being renovated. Always something. But none of that prepared me for the phone call that came on a Tuesday evening in January. I was making dinner when my phone rang, and Jessica's voice was higher than usual, almost breathless with excitement. "Mom! Oh my God, Mom! David proposed!" I nearly dropped the wooden spoon I was holding. My baby girl engaged. I started crying right there in my kitchen, tears of pure joy streaming down my face. "Oh, honey, congratulations! Tell me everything. When? How? Where?" She launched into the story. A surprise weekend trip to Big Sur. Proposal on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The ring was perfect. She was so happy she could barely think straight. For 20 minutes, she was my little girl again, bubbling over with excitement, wanting to share every detail with her mom. "We're thinking about a destination wedding," she said near the end of the call. "Somewhere special, you know. Maybe Paris or Italy, something romantic and memorable. That sounds absolutely magical, I told her, already envisioning myself helping with planning, maybe even taking a trip to scout venues. Whatever you want, sweetheart, it's your special day. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for an hour, just smiling. My daughter was getting married. I was going to be the mother of the bride. I started imagining the whole thing, helping her find the perfect dress, planning the shower, giving a speech at the reception about what a wonderful woman she'd become. The next morning, I was still floating on air when Jessica called again. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about this being my special day." "Of course it is, honey. Your wedding should be everything you've dreamed of." "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. David and I were discussing the budget, and destination weddings are so expensive. We want it to be perfect, but we're worried about the cost." I didn't even hesitate. "Let me help. This is my gift to you, my only daughter's wedding. I want it to be perfect too." "Mom, no, we couldn't ask you to—" "You're not asking, I'm offering. I have savings, and what's the point of having money if I can't use it to make my daughter's dreams come true?" There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Then quietly, "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure. Tell me what you need." That's how it started. The venue deposit came first, $25,000 for a chateau outside Paris. I transferred the money the same day, my heart singing with happiness that I could give this to her. Then came the photographer upgrade, $8,000 for someone who specialized in destination weddings. The florist, $5,000 for arrangements that would be Instagram perfect. Catering upgrades, transportation, accommodations for the wedding party, $12,000 more. With each transfer, I felt more connected to the wedding, more involved in creating something beautiful for Jessica. I bought a mother of the bride dress, navy blue, with elegant beading, $800 that I considered an investment in looking appropriate for such a fancy affair. I booked my flight to Paris, upgraded to business class because at my age, why not be comfortable? I even bought a new camera and spent weeks learning how to use it properly, imagining all the candid moments I'd capture. $50,000, nearly 40% of my retirement savings. But every dollar felt like an expression of love, a way to show Jessica how much her happiness meant to me. The wedding planning stretched over 6 months, and I threw myself into it with enthusiasm. I researched Parisian wedding traditions, practiced basic French phrases, bought guidebooks for the areas near the chateau. I was going to be the perfect wedding guest, the proud mother who enhanced the celebration instead of embarrassing anyone. But as the months passed, I noticed Jessica sharing fewer and fewer details. When I'd ask about the guest list, she'd say they were still working on it. When I asked about the timeline for the weekend, she'd mention they were finalizing logistics. I assumed she was just overwhelmed with planning a wedding from across the ocean. I should have paid more attention to how David acted during our video calls. He was polite but distant, never really engaging in conversation with me. When I'd ask about his family, he'd give short answers. When I'd mention how excited I was about the wedding, he'd smile tightly and change the subject. Jessica would make excuses. He was tired, he was stressed about work, he wasn't great with small talk. 3 weeks before the wedding, I was in my bedroom packing my suitcase for Paris. I'd laid out my outfit for each day, rolled my clothes the way the travel websites recommended, and was double-checking my medication list when I decided to check my email for any last-minute updates about the wedding schedule. There was one new message from Jessica. Subject line, "Wedding update, important." My heart did a little flutter of excitement, maybe final details about timing or information about the rehearsal dinner, or even just a sweet note about how grateful she was that I was coming. I opened the email. "Hi, Mom, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out about the wedding. After talking with David and thinking about what we want for our special day, we've decided to keep it very intimate. Just immediate family and closest friends. I know you contributed to the costs, and I'm grateful. But this is really about what feels right for us as a couple, starting our new life. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL. The ceremony will be live streamed, so you won't miss anything important. I hope you understand this isn't personal. Love, Jessica. I read it once, then again, then a third time, certain I was misunderstanding something fundamental. My hands started shaking. I set the laptop down on my bed and walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror. Maybe I'd misread it. Maybe she was talking about some other part of the wedding, not the ceremony itself. I went back and read it again. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL. The casual cruelty of that line hit me like a physical blow, not just uninvited, but mocked for it. Told I could watch through a computer screen like some distant acquaintance instead of the woman who gave birth to her, raised her, and paid for 60% of this wedding. Just immediate family and closest friends. Immediate family. After 28 years of being her mother, after $50,000, after a lifetime of putting her needs before my own, I wasn't immediate family. I sat down heavily on my bed, still staring at the email. The suitcase I'd been packing so carefully looked ridiculous now. The carefully chosen outfits, the new camera, the French phrasebook I'd been studying, all of it for a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. For 2 hours, I didn't move. I just sat there, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd chosen Jessica's needs over my own comfort. The retirement cruise I'd canceled to help with her condo down payment, the part-time job I'd taken when she was in college to help with expenses, the boyfriend I'd stopped seeing seriously because Jessica didn't like him and I didn't want to complicate her life. I thought about the rose garden outside my window, the one Robert had planted when Jessica was born. How he'd said we were planting roots for our family, creating something beautiful that would last. What would he think of this moment? What would he say about his daughter treating his wife like an unwanted stranger? The worst part wasn't even the disinvitation. It was the casual way she'd done it. An email, not even a phone call. Just a cold, businesslike message with that cruel little joke about Google Earth, as if my feelings were so unimportant they could be dismissed with humor. I hope you understand this isn't personal. $50,000, 28 years of motherhood, and it wasn't personal. I finally stood up and walked to my kitchen, made myself a cup of tea with shaking hands, and sat at the table where I'd eaten dinner alone for 8 years, where I'd talked to Jessica on the phone every week, where I'd planned surprise care packages for her during college finals, where I'd cried with happiness when she called to tell me about the engagement. I picked up my phone 3 times to call her, and 3 times I put it down. What would I say? Beg to be allowed at my own daughter's wedding? Remind her of everything I'd done for her? Create the drama she was probably expecting? No. If Jessica wanted to treat me like I was nothing, I would show her what nothing actually looked like. I opened my laptop and typed a response. Sure, honey, enjoy your big day. Love, Mom. Short, sweet. No arguments, no guilt trips, no emotional manipulation. Just acceptance. Delivered with the same casual tone she'd used to shatter my heart. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I went back to my bedroom, unpacked my suitcase, and hung my mother-of-the-bride dress back in the closet. I wouldn't be needing it after all. What I didn't know then was that my calm response would terrify Jessica more than any screaming fit or tearful confrontation ever could. By the next morning, she'd be calling me nonstop, panic rising in her voice with each voicemail. But I had a volunteer shift at the animal shelter, and for the first time in years, I was going to put myself first. Let her wonder what I was thinking. Let her sit with the consequences of treating her mother like a disposable source of funding. I was about to discover that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all. The first sign that my calm response had rattled, Jessica came 12 hours later. I woke up to find 7 missed calls and 3 text messages, all from my daughter, who rarely contacted me more than once a week. Mom, can we talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding. Please call me back. I made my coffee, watered my roses, and read the messages again. The desperation was already creeping in, the realization that her mother hadn't reacted the way she'd expected. I'd given her exactly what she asked for, acceptance and distance, and apparently that wasn't what she'd wanted at all. I didn't call back. Instead, I went about my normal Saturday routine. Volunteer shift at the animal shelter from 9 to 1, lunch with my book club friends, grocery shopping, evening at home with a good book. Every few hours, my phone would buzz with another call or text from Jessica, each one slightly more frantic than the last. "Mom, I'm worried about you." "Why aren't you answering? Can you please just call me back so I know you're okay?" By Sunday, she'd escalated to calling my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. I was pulling weeds in my garden when I saw Helen walking across our shared fence line with a concerned expression. "Margaret, dear, your Jessica called me this morning. She's worried because you haven't been answering your phone." I sat back on my heels, dirt on my gardening gloves, and looked up at Helen. We'd been neighbors for 15 years, ever since she and her husband moved in next door. She'd seen me through Robert's death, through Jessica's college years, through all the ups and downs of single motherhood and widowhood. "I've been busy," I said simply. She said something about a wedding? I thought you were going to Paris for her wedding next week. "Plans changed," I said, turning back to my weeds. She decided to keep it small. Helen was quiet for a moment. I could feel her studying my face, trying to read between the lines. Helen had raised 4 children of her own, and she understood family dynamics better than most. "Are you all right, dear?" I looked up at her again. This woman who'd brought me casseroles when Robert died and never asked invasive questions about my business. "I'm fine, Helen. Really. Just adjusting to new circumstances." She nodded slowly. "Well, if you need anything, you know where to find me." After she left, I went inside and saw 3 more missed calls from Jessica. Her voicemails were getting longer, more rambling. "Mom, Mrs. Henderson says you're fine, but you're not acting like yourself. This isn't like you to not call me back. I know you're upset about the wedding, but we need to talk about this. Please just pick up the phone." What she didn't understand was that this was exactly like me, the real me, the one who'd been buried under 28 years of putting her needs first, the me who deserved better than being treated like an ATM with emotions. I spent Sunday evening doing something I hadn't done in months. I researched cruise itineraries, the retirement cruise I'd canceled to help Jessica with her condo down payment, Mediterranean cruises, Alaska cruises, river cruises through Europe, all the places Robert and I had planned to visit together, all the dreams I'd put on hold to fund my daughter's life. Monday morning brought a new strategy from Jessica. She called my cousin Sarah, who lived about an hour away in Columbus. "Margaret, it's Sarah. I just got the strangest call from Jessica." Let me guess, she's worried about me. "She said you're not answering your phone and she's concerned about your mental state. She mentioned something about a wedding and family disagreements. Are you okay?" I couldn't help but laugh, though it came out more bitter than I intended. "I'm perfectly fine, Sarah. Jessica uninvited me from her wedding, the wedding I paid for, and now she's surprised that I'm not falling all over myself to console her about it." There was a long pause. "She uninvited you? From her own wedding?" "Via email, very casual about it." "Oh, honey." Sarah's voice was soft with understanding. "I'm so sorry, that's just wrong." "It is what it is. I'm just done pretending it doesn't hurt." "Good for you," Sarah said firmly. "You've given that girl everything. If she can't see your value, that's her loss." After we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Someone else saw what I saw, that what Jessica had done was inexcusable, regardless of her reasons. Tuesday brought social media tactics. Jessica posted on Facebook, "Trying to reach my mom? Anyone heard from her?" It was a public manipulation designed to make me look unreasonable for not responding to her calls. The comments were telling. "Is everything okay? Hope your mom is all right. Wedding stress affects everyone differently. Maybe give her some space?" I almost laughed at that last one. Maybe give her some space. That's exactly what I was doing. I spent Tuesday afternoon researching something I'd become curious about: Jessica's social media activity over the past few months. What I found made my stomach turn. Posts about financial independence and breaking free from parental control. Shares of articles about toxic parents and setting healthy boundaries. Out. Photos from expensive dinners and weekend trips that I now realized were funded by my wedding contribution. But the worst part was a post from 3 weeks ago, right around the time she would have been drafting that email to me. Learning that family isn't just about blood. It's about people who support your growth and respect your choices. Respect your choices. Like my choice to fund 60% of your wedding wasn't worth respecting with an actual conversation. I kept digging, scrolling back through months of posts. There it was. The evidence of a pattern I'd been too loving and too trusting to see. Every time I'd helped her financially, there would be a series of posts about independence and self-reliance afterward, as if taking my money somehow diminished her and she needed to publicly assert her autonomy to compensate. The student loan payments I'd helped with during her first year out of college, followed by posts about earning everything I have. The condo down payment, followed by posts about building my own life without handouts. And now the wedding money, followed by posts about toxic family members who don't respect boundaries. I was seeing a psychological pattern that probably required therapy to fully understand, but the basic outline was clear enough. Jessica needed my money but resented needing it, so she'd take it and then punish me for giving it. Wednesday was when Jessica's panic really set in. She called 17 times. 17. I know because I counted. The voicemails escalated from concerned to frustrated to desperate. "Mom, this is getting ridiculous. I know you're upset, but ignoring me isn't solving anything." "Fine, you want to play games. 2 can play that game." "Mom, please, I'm scared. This isn't like you at all." "I get it, okay? You're mad, but we're family, and family talks through their problems." Family. Now I was family again. Thursday brought a new low. Jessica called my doctor's office claiming to be worried about my mental health and asking if I'd been in for any appointments recently. Dr. Rodriguez called me personally to let me know. "Margaret, your daughter called expressing concern about your well-being. I told her I couldn't discuss your medical information, but I wanted to check in with you directly." "I'm fine, Dr. Rodriguez. My daughter and I had a disagreement, and she's not handling my response well." "Are you experiencing any depression or anxiety about this family situation?" I thought about it honestly. No more than would be normal for someone whose child just treated them poorly. I'm hurt, but I'm coping fine. Good. But if you need someone to talk to, I can recommend a counselor who specializes in family dynamics. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. After that call, I felt my first real flash of anger. Jessica had crossed a line, involving my healthcare providers in her manipulation campaign. That was when I realized this wasn't just about wedding hurt feelings anymore. This was about fundamental respect, and my daughter had none for me. Friday, I did something I hadn't done since Jessica was a child. I blocked her number. Not permanently, I told myself, just until after the wedding. I needed space to think, and she needed to sit with the consequences of her choices without being able to bulldoze her way back into my good graces with charm and tears. The silence was immediate and profound. For the first time in days, my phone wasn't buzzing constantly. I spent Friday evening reading a novel without interruption, something I hadn't done since this whole mess started. Saturday was the wedding day. I woke up early, as I always do, and made my coffee. As I stood in my kitchen, looking out at the rose garden, I thought about what I was supposed to be doing today. Getting dressed in my mother of the bride outfit, taking final photos before leaving for the airport, nervously checking my passport and boarding passes one last time. Instead, I was wearing my gardening clothes and planning to spend the day volunteering at the animal shelter. I wondered if Jessica was thinking about me as she got ready, if she was regretting her decision or doubling down on it, if David's family was asking where her mother was, or if she'd prepared some explanation that made me the villain in the story. Around noon, my curiosity got the better of me. I unblocked Jessica's number just to see if she'd tried to call today. 43 missed calls since I'd blocked her yesterday. 43. The most recent voicemail, left at 6 a.m. Paris time, was Jessica crying. "Mom, I know you're angry and I know I hurt you, but today is my wedding day, and you're not here. I keep looking for you in the crowd and remembering that you're not coming. I messed up, okay? I messed up really badly. But please don't punish me by missing this. Please get on a plane. I'll pay for it. I'll change everything. Just please don't let me get married without my mom there." Too little. Too late. I deleted the voicemail and blocked her number again. At 2 p.m. Ohio time, 8 p.m. in Paris, I was at the animal shelter cleaning kennels and playing with puppies who were just happy to have attention. Clean, simple interactions with creatures who didn't manipulate or hurt the people who cared for them. My phone, in my purse in the break room, was recording message after message I wouldn't hear until later. Jessica's wedding was happening, and I was exactly where I chose to be. That evening, I unblocked her number again and listened to the messages that had accumulated throughout the day. She'd called during the ceremony, during the reception, during what should have been the happiest day of her life. But the message that told me everything I needed to know came at 11 p.m. Paris time. "Mom, the wedding is over. It was beautiful, I guess. But everyone kept asking where you were. David's parents asked. His aunts and uncles asked. My college friends asked. Even the photographer asked if we wanted to wait for more family to arrive. I had to keep lying and saying you couldn't make it because of health issues. I've never felt like such a fraud in my life. Everyone thinks you're sick, and instead you're just done with me. I think I'm finally understanding what I did. I took the person who loved me most in the world, and I threw that love away because I was embarrassed by it. I don't know how to fix this, Mom. I don't even know if it can be fixed. But I need you to know that I love you, and I'm sorry. And today was the worst day of my life because you weren't there to share it with me." I listened to that message 3 times before I deleted it. Then I went to bed, and for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly through the night. Tomorrow, Jessica would call again, and probably the day after that. But for tonight, the wedding was over, the damage was done, and I was finally, truly free to decide what kind of relationship I wanted with my daughter going forward, if any. The calls started again the morning after the wedding, but this time they were different. Desperate, frantic. Jessica had clearly spent her wedding night, trying to figure out how to fix what she'd broken. I let them go to voicemail. "Mom, pick up, please. I know you're screening my calls, but we need to talk about this. The wedding is over and nothing feels right because you weren't there." Another call an hour later. "I told everyone you were sick. I've been lying to people all weekend about where you were. Do you know how that feels? To lie about your own mother on your wedding day?" And another. "David's family keeps asking when they'll meet you. His mother wants to take us all to dinner next week. What am I supposed to tell them? That I uninvited my own mother from my wedding?" I was sitting in my kitchen, drinking my morning coffee and listening to these messages play through my phone's speaker. Each one revealed more about what had really happened at that château in Paris, and none of it surprised me. The 4th call that morning came from a number I didn't recognize, a French country code. Jessica calling from the hotel, probably because she thought I might answer if I didn't see her name. I picked up. "Mom, oh, thank God you answered. I've been trying to reach you all morning." "Hi, Jessica. How was your honeymoon night?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "How was—" "Mom, that's not what matters right now. We need to talk about what happened yesterday." "Oh, what happened yesterday was exactly what you planned. Your wedding went off without a hitch, I assume." "No, I mean, yes, but—" "Mom, it was awful. Everyone kept asking about you. The photographer kept looking around for the mother of the bride. David's grandmother asked me 3 times when she was going to meet my mother. I felt like a fraud the entire day." I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm sure you handled it fine. You're very good at explanations." I'm not good at lying about you. I had to tell people you were sick, and I felt terrible every time I said it. Well, you could have told them the truth, that you decided your mother wasn't family enough to attend. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, That's not how I meant it. How did you mean it, Jessica? In your email, you said you were keeping it to immediate family and closest friends. What category was I supposed to understand myself to be in? You're my mother, of course, your immediate family. Then why wasn't I invited? Another long pause. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her struggling to find words that would make this make sense. It was complicated, Mom. David's family had opinions about the guest list, and we were trying to keep everyone happy. Everyone except me. That's not fair, isn't it? Jessica, I paid for 60% of your wedding. I bought a dress, booked a flight, spent weeks learning French phrases so I wouldn't embarrass you in Paris, and you uninvited me via email with a joke about Google Earth. If that's not excluding me, what would you call it? I heard her start to cry. I call it the worst mistake I've ever made. For a moment, I felt the old instinct kick in, the urge to comfort her, to minimize my own hurt, to make her feel better. But something had shifted in me over the past week. I'd spent 8 days discovering what it felt like to put myself first, and I wasn't ready to give that up. Mistakes are when you accidentally hurt someone, Jessica. You made a choice. You chose David's family's comfort over your mother's feelings. You chose to take my money, but not include me in the celebration it paid for. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. Mom, please, can we fix this? Can you come to Paris? We're here for another week. We could have dinner. We could talk. No. The firmness in my own voice surprised me. No, I'm not coming to Paris to clean up the mess you made. I'm not going to chase after you and beg to be treated like family. Then what do you want? What can I do to make this right? I thought about that question for a long moment. What did I want? For 28 years, what I'd wanted was Jessica's happiness, often at the expense of my own. But what did I want for myself? I want you to figure out what kind of relationship you actually want with me, Jessica. Not what's convenient when you need something, not what looks good to other people, but what you genuinely want. And I want you to be honest about it. I want my mom back. The mom who pays for things and asks no questions. The mom who accepts whatever treatment you dish out and smiles gratefully for it. Or the mom who deserves to be treated with respect and consideration. I don't know how to answer that. That's the problem, isn't it? You've never had to think about it before because I've always just accepted whatever you were willing to give me. I could hear David's voice in the background asking if everything was okay. Jessica covered the phone to respond to him, and when she came back, her voice was different, more controlled. David says we should probably give each other some space to cool down. David's probably right about something for once. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm going to hang up now, Jessica. Enjoy the rest of your honeymoon. When you get back to the States, if you want to have an honest conversation about our relationship, you know how to reach me. I hung up before she could respond. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. For the next 6 months, I barely heard from Jessica. A text message on my birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Hope you're well. A Christmas card with no personal note, just her and David's signatures. An announcement that they were moving to a bigger place in San Francisco. No request for help with the down payment this time. The silence was initially painful, then gradually became peaceful. I started traveling. A long weekend in Chicago, a week in Savannah, the Alaskan cruise I'd been dreaming about for years. I took art classes at the community center, joined a hiking group for seniors, even went on a few dates with Harold, a widower from my book club. Harold was kind and funny, a retired engineer who'd lost his wife 3 years ago. He understood grief and loneliness, but also the freedom that came with building a new life on your own terms. We started as friends, bonding over books and shared experiences of parenting adult children who'd grown distant. Slowly, carefully, we became something more. It was Harold who was with me the evening Jessica finally called, 6 months after the wedding. We were making dinner together in my kitchen. Harold was teaching me how to make his grandmother's pasta sauce. When my phone rang, Jessica's name appeared on the screen and I felt my stomach drop. "Want me to step out?" Harold asked quietly. I shook my head. "No, stay. I might need the moral support." I answered on the fourth ring. "Hello, Jessica. Mom." Her voice was small, uncertain. "How are you?" "I'm well. You?" Things are complicated, with David, with everything." I waited. After months of silence, she would have to do the work of this conversation. His family is very controlling. About everything, where we live, what we do, how we spend money. David just goes along with whatever they want, and I'm starting to feel like I don't have a voice in my own marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I kept my voice neutral. That sounds difficult. It is, and I keep thinking about what happened with the wedding, how I let them influence that decision too. Is that what happened? They influenced you? His mother said American mothers can be very emotional at weddings. She suggested it might be better to keep the guest list small and avoid any potential drama. I felt Harold's hand touch my shoulder gently, steadying me. "And you agreed with her assessment?" I thought it would be easier. One day of keeping the peace, and then everything could go back to normal. Except nothing went back to normal, did it? No. Her voice was barely a whisper. Nothing has been normal since then. "Jessica, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." "Okay. If I hadn't contributed money to your wedding, would you have invited me?" Long pause. Too long. "I don't know. Maybe not." At least she was being honest. Why? Because David's family has money, real money, and I was embarrassed about our situation, about how much I'd needed your help over the years. I wanted to look independent and successful, not like someone whose mother had to pay for everything. There it was, the truth I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to acknowledge. "So you took my money, but excluded me from the celebration it paid for because my financial help embarrassed you." When you put it like that, it sounds horrible. It was horrible, Jessica. You used me as a bank and then discarded me when it was convenient. She started crying. I know it was awful. I've been living with the guilt for months. David and I are in counseling now, trying to figure out how to set boundaries with his family. And the therapist keeps asking about my family relationships. I had to tell her what I did to you, and she said it was one of the cruelest things she'd ever heard. What did you tell her exactly? That I uninvited my mother from my wedding after she paid for most of it, that I did it via email with no explanation, that I made a joke about Google Earth. Her voice broke. When I said it out loud in therapy, I realized how monstrous it sounded. It was monstrous, Jessica. I know, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to make up for something that cruel. I looked at Harold, who was quietly stirring the pasta sauce and pretending not to listen. This good man who treated me with respect and kindness, who valued my opinions and made me feel cherished. This relationship I'd built while Jessica was off playing house with people who were teaching her to be ashamed of her family. You can't make up for it, I said finally. Some things can't be undone, but you can decide what kind of person you want to be going forward. What do you mean? I mean, you can keep making choices based on what other people expect, or you can start making choices based on what you know is right. You can keep being embarrassed by the mother who loved you enough to sacrifice for you, or you can decide that love is more valuable than status. I want to choose love. I want to choose you. Then you need to prove it, Jessica. Not with words, but with actions. And not just when it's convenient or when your marriage is falling apart. How? Tell me how to prove it. I thought about my answer carefully. Start by being honest. With me? With David? With his family? Stop pretending to be someone you're not. Stop being ashamed of where you came from and who raised you. David's parents are coming to visit next month. They want to take us to dinner and meet more of my family. And I want to invite you. I want them to meet my mother. After 6 months of silence, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. I looked around my kitchen at the life I'd built without her, the art supplies on the counter from my painting class, the hiking boots by the door from weekend adventures with Harold, the cruise brochures on the refrigerator for trips I was planning for myself. I'll think about it, I said. Really? I said I'll think about it. That's not a yes. But it's not a no either. No, it's not a no. After we hung up, Harold and I finished making dinner in relative silence. Finally, as we sat down to eat, he spoke. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that I spent 28 years being the mother she needed, and now I need to decide what kind of mother I want to be. What's the difference? The mother she needed always said yes, always sacrificed, always put her feelings first. I took a bite of the pasta sauce. It was delicious. The mother I want to be has boundaries and self-respect and other relationships that matter. Harold smiled. I like the sound of that mother. Me too. Jessica did invite me to dinner with David's parents. I said yes, but on my terms. The dinner would be at a restaurant I chose, not at their house where I might feel obligated to play guest. Harold would come with me as my boyfriend, not as a hidden secret. And Jessica would introduce me accurately, as the mother who helped make her education and wedding possible, not as some distant relative they were being polite to. The dinner was awkward but illuminating. David's parents were polite but cool, clearly having formed opinions about me based on Jessica's previous descriptions. When Harold mentioned his engineering background and our recent trip to Alaska, I saw them reassess me slightly. When Jessica mentioned, truthfully for once, that I'd helped fund her education and wedding, they looked genuinely surprised. We thought you were retired on a small pension, David's mother said. I am, I replied, but I prioritized Jessica's future over my own comfort for many years. The conversation moved on, but I caught David's mother studying me with new interest. By the end of the evening, she was asking about my volunteer work and making polite noises about hoping to see more of me. After they left, Jessica walked me to my car. Thank you for coming, she said, and for bringing Harold. I can see why you like him. He treats me like I matter. She flinched at the implication. I want to treat you like you matter too. Then do it, consistently, not just when you need something or when you're having marriage problems. I will, I promise. Don't promise, Jessica. Just do it. 2 years later, Jessica and David divorced. David's family had been too controlling, too dismissive of Jessica's independence, too determined to remake her into their image of an appropriate wife. The irony that she'd sacrificed her relationship with me to please people who ultimately rejected her anyway wasn't lost on either of us. But by then, we'd rebuilt something. Not the old relationship where I gave and she took, but something more balanced. She called regularly, not just when she needed something. She remembered my birthday, Harold's birthday, important events in my life. When she moved back to Ohio after the divorce, she didn't ask to move back in with me. She got her own apartment and built her own life. Most importantly, she apologized, not just once, but repeatedly, and with increasing understanding of how her actions had affected me. I destroyed something precious, she told me one afternoon as we were walking through the botanical gardens. I had a mother who would have done anything for me, and I threw that away because I was embarrassed by how much you loved me. Why were you embarrassed? Because loving someone that much meant I was vulnerable. David's family made love look like weakness, like dependence. I thought if I could prove I didn't need you, I'd be stronger. And how did that work out? She laughed, but it was sad. It turned out that pushing away the people who love you unconditionally doesn't make you strong. It just makes you alone. We'd reached the rose garden, and I stopped in front of a bush that reminded me of the ones Robert had planted for Jessica's birth. The thing is, Jessica, love isn't supposed to be embarrassing. When someone loves you enough to sacrifice for you, that's a gift. It doesn't make you weak to accept it. It makes you loved. I know that now. I wish I'd known it then. You were young. You were trying to figure out who you wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who didn't come from a small town in Ohio, someone whose mother wasn't a public school teacher, someone sophisticated and independent. She shook her head. I wanted to be someone else entirely. And how did that feel? Empty, like I was wearing a costume that never quite fit. Harold and I got married the following spring, a small ceremony in my backyard with the rose garden as our backdrop. Jessica was my maid of honor, and for the first time in years, she seemed genuinely happy for me, instead of just politely supportive. At the reception, she gave a speech that surprised me. My mother taught me a lot of things growing up, she said, standing in front of our small gathering of friends and family. She taught me to work hard, to be kind, to help others when I could. But the most important thing she taught me recently. She taught me that love should never come with conditions, but it also shouldn't come without respect. She taught me that by loving me enough to let me face the consequences of treating her poorly. She looked directly at me, tears in her eyes. Mom, I spent years taking your love for granted because I thought it would always be there no matter how I treated you. When you stepped back and made me earn it back, you gave me the greatest gift of my life. You taught me what love actually looks like when it's healthy and mutual. Harold squeezed my hand as Jessica continued. Harold, thank you for showing my mother that she deserves to be loved well. And thank you for being patient while she taught me the same lesson. The speech got a standing ovation, but more importantly, it felt true. We'd found our way back to each other, but as different people in a different relationship. Now, 3 years later, I can honestly say I'm proud of the woman Jessica has become. She's still ambitious and driven, but she's also learned the value of genuine relationships over status symbols. She's dating someone new, a teacher like I was, someone who appreciates her roots instead of asking her to hide them. She still calls every week, but now the conversations are balanced. She asks about my life, my relationship with Harold, my volunteer work, my latest painting projects, and when she shares news about her life, it's not because she needs something from me, it's because she wants to include me in her happiness. The wedding photos from Paris are in a box in her closet. She's never displayed them, never posted them on social media with pride. She tells people, when asked, that her wedding day was the worst day of her life because she'd excluded the person who mattered most. I don't wish pain on my daughter, but I'm glad she learned that actions have consequences. I'm glad she discovered that you can't build happiness on a foundation of cruelty, even casual cruelty. And I'm grateful that losing her taught me to value myself enough to build a life that didn't revolve around her needs. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling someone to take you for granted. Sometimes, stepping back is the only way to move forward. My garden is thriving. My marriage is strong. My daughter respects me. And for the first time in years, I know exactly what I'm worth. It turns out that's more than $50,000. It's more than any amount of money. It's everything.